If you flip through the Webster dictionary to the word desperate, you're going to see a beautiful big picture of the Milwaukee Bucks. What we witnessed yesterday was one of the more wildest moves that I've seen in recent NBA history. And before we break it down, if this is your first time here, do me a favor, support the channel just by hitting the little subscribe and the notification bell so you know the next time the NBA Bit with Mike Zakarian is dropping some content. And speaking of dropping some cash, the Milwaukee Bucks were on one yesterday. Shams was sending the internet into a frenzy, and it all started with the Miles Turner sniping. The Indiana Pacers, who were just on the precipice of an NBA championship, losing in Game 7 in the NBA Finals to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Halliburton gets his own Damian Lillard injury where he loses his Achilles in an entire NBA season. And then Miles Turner gets sniped from the Indiana Pacers to the Milwaukee Bucks. But when the deal happened, the Brian Windhorse fingers went up as high as they can go because financially it didn't make sense. They did not have the cap flexibility and the space to actually acquire Miles Turner. So what did they do? They said, hey, Dame time. How about it's cut time? Then no more wristwatch tapping. It's now like cut it out. Shout out to Full House. But Dame having a year left plus a player option. The player option, guess what? He's opting in. So that means for the next 5 years, the Milwaukee Bucks will just be paying a ghost $22 million. And there was something beautiful about it happening on Bobby Bonilla Day. For those unfamiliar, when Bobby Bonilla took his deal from the New York Mets, he was like, hey, why don't you just pay me a little over $1 million for the next 45 years, essentially is what happened. So yesterday, Bobby Bonilla got to cash his check, and Dame got his own version of the Bonilla as he now gets to get paid by the Milwaukee Bucks for the next 5 years, $22 million each and every year. And what makes this so desperate, we'll get into Damian Lillard, what this means for him, for his future and his next steps. But to me, what is so chaotic and crazy about this is the Milwaukee Bucks think this is a good idea. Now, this feels like a bunch of guys who are sweaty in a conference room being like, we need to make this work now. We're scared Giannis is going to leave. And so, listen, I understand. You know you don't have Damian Lillard for at least a full season. He's also and a different part of his career, coming back from a catastrophic leg injury. You don't know what kind of form or how long it's going to take before Dame time comes back. I totally understand that. And I also understand that it was probably difficult to find trade partners, especially since your assets are everywhere else but in the state of Wisconsin, right? Portland owns a bunch of your picks. The Pelicans own a bunch of your picks. So it's not like you can attach assets to go get something back. So they're saying, listen, what if we just pay Dame, Dame normally would make $40 to $50 million. Why don't we spend that same amount of money and go get somebody, basically overpay them, that can impact winning now? And that's what they did with Miles Turner. And I'm not making this whole video to say Miles Turner isn't worth the deal. I think 4 years, $107 million, perfectly acceptable for someone that can block shots, shoot threes, and build Lego towers. But you are now paying him that salary plus $22 million every single year. That's essentially what you're doing because of that ghost salary of Dame time. You're basically paying two Kyle Kuzmas. Kuzma makes around $22 million, does not really impact basketball. Now you're going to be paying Damian Lillard $22 million, who literally won't be on your team. But the Milwaukee Bucks saw what happened to the Pacers with Halliburton's injury. They saw what happened to the Celtics with Jason Tatum's injury. They see that the New York Knicks are still doing interviews in the month of July. The Philadelphia 76ers have yet to put a healthy team on the court in how many years now? We're now buzzing up the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic, who haven't won actual playoff series in a long time. You have, who else am I missing here? The Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, a legit threat who got bounced in the second round, won 60 games, pretty much bringing their entire core back. Heat culture is going through a weird time, right? So they're looking around and they're like, hey, we actually think we can make a run at this. And I understand it. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best players of our generation, top 3 player in the NBA right now. Let's say 4, because we have to allow Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka into this conversation along with the Joker, right? But you still have, this is your roster right now. You're going to be long, you're going to be tall. There's that. You've got Giannis, you've got Kyle Kuzma, you've got now Miles Turner, and then what? right? You brought back Bobby Portis. We love the Bobby Lobby. I think he's entering a different part of his career. Whatever. We love Bobby Lobby. You still have AJ Green over there. You're now relying on Kevin freaking Porter Jr. to be out there doing stuff. Anytime somebody's relied on Kevin Porter Jr., it's ended in some sort of NBA Central tweet that's like, here's some terrible stuff that happened. And listen, I'm all about reform. I'm all about change. But until we start dealing with domestic abuse like we deal with Malik Beasley, which is turning into a very sad story. Anyways, I don't want to hear it. We've seen him flame out in Cleveland, in Houston, in the Clippers, and now you're saying Kevin Porter Jr. is going to be leading the Milwaukee Bucks backcourt to what? 46 wins and a second-round exit? Is that really worth blowing up your potential to make moves further into the future or like the near future as a Bucks organization to get the second seat? Because again, the Knicks and the Cavs, I still think I'm comfortably taking over this Bucks roster. Let's read off some of the other names that are on this team. AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., right? Although, didn't Andre Jackson Jr. get moved? No, I'm confusing that with a different person who went to the Wizards. Tyler Smith. These are names of guys who, they were just naming dudes. And maybe Milwaukee's able to find guys to take a vet min and go play over there. But it is a tough situation to be in, I think, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. And I don't know if leadership saw this and they were like, we have a real chance at getting out of the Eastern Conference. But I'd love to hear from people who are tuning into this video where, looking at all of the rosters in the Eastern Conference, where are you putting the Milwaukee Bucks right now? And I mean, what kind of chance that Giannis wants to compete and maybe he just wants to feel like he has a chance, right? We're almost manipulative a little bit. We want to feel like we have a chance at winning a chip. So that's how we're going to do it. I don't know. I don't see it. This feels super desperate. As someone who is a fan of a different Eastern Conference team, this makes me feel better about the future of Giannis. But imagine too, or imagine Dragons, but imagine too, if Miles Turner gets dinged up or some sort of injury happens and the Bucks are off to a sub 500 start 2 months into the NBA season. I know it's roses and sunshine right now. I'm going to play for one team my entire life, right? That's what Giannis is saying about Milwaukee. You get off to a slow start. Somebody who said he wants to compete year in and year out. What if Giannis rips the Band-Aid off and is get me out of here? Then what do you do? What do you do now? And I presented an opportunity of what they could do yesterday with a video about the Portland Trailblazers. So go check that out if you'd like. But I just think they are in a tough situation. And maybe Bucks fans disagree and they're happy to be relevant again, but woof, I just don't understand. But speaking of not understanding, let's talk about Damian Lillard. Before we do that, do me a favor, hit the subscribe. I felt bad for Dame for a little bit. This felt like an ego hit, right? You had an NBA team be like, listen, bro, I'm good. I'm all set. We're just going to pay you not to be here. But now let's take a step back. Let's take a step back, Dame. You didn't want to go to Milwaukee in the first place. They traded you to a place you didn't want to go. You were going through some weird family stuff. You were away from your kiddos. It didn't really fit. You had to get coached by Doc Rivers. Now you get to sit back. You get to rehab the best you can, which reports were coming out before this move happened that Dame was like, I want to rehab in Portland, not with the team in Milwaukee. And the Bucks didn't like that. And I don't know if that snowballed all of this, but something to think about. But now Dame gets to sit back. He can rehab wherever he wants, regardless of what happens. He's going to get $22 million this year, next year, the year after that, one more time, and a fifth time. And then he gets to just pick what team he wants to go to. Now, there's been reports here that the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics, two teams having very weird off seasons, are interested in scooping up Dame. And sure, that sounds fun. Dame, why not have, if you're the Boston Celtics, one torn Achilles is better than two, right? With our powers combined, maybe Dame and Tatum can either share an Achilles or something. But it would make sense that when Tatum's coming back, Dame's coming back. I get it. Maybe Dame decides, hey, if I get a $10 million deal, I'm making $32 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the other thing. Dame can decide. He can get paid as much or as little as he wants. He's almost like a coach that gets fired and gets continued to be paid by the other team and then gets another job. That's basically what Dame's situation is. But anyways, if I'm Damian Lillard, yeah, sure, the Celtics sound nice. The Warriors sound nice. Why are you making this decision now? And I think everybody's so quick to be like, oh, is he going to sign with the Heat? Is he going to go here? If I'm Dame, And not that you're looking for advice, Dame, but if I'm you, I'm going to sit back and watch. I think about Quinn Snyder, who's now in a good spot right now, but Quinn Snyder left the Utah Jazz, immediately took the opening of the Atlanta Hawks. And listen, that might turn out to be a good decision 5 years later. But in the meantime, I was like, Quinn, bro, you're considered one of the better coaches in the league. Why don't you sit back and find the spot that makes the most sense, right? Don't rush into grabbing that next job. You know you're going to be sought after. People are going, if you're Dame, regardless if we haven't seen you in a while because of a torn Achilles, because you're aging up, we know your defense is a little shaky. Everybody's going to remember Dame time knocking down threes, sending Paul George home multiple times, right? We're going to remember that. If I'm Dame, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to have some margaritas while I'm doing some work here, right? And then, while I'm rehabbing, and then I'm just going to find the spot that makes the most sense, you know? You don't need to rush into this right now. So it's great that the Boston Celtics and Golden State Warriors are like, let's go get him. Also, can you imagine a Dame Steph backcourt? One of the best 3-point shooting backcourts of all time that would get absolutely lit up on defense. What are we talking about? Unless Dame's like, yeah, I'll come off the bench and play 9 minutes a game. Well, you can't play those two guys together. That would be insane. Anyways, the Bucks Dame era is such a weird winding road, right? The sliding doors of, if Giannis, the minute, like, you think about the Bucks run, I'm sorry, I'm spilling all over my words here. If you think about the Bucks run, right, they get a title and then just like weird injury luck. You have Middleton basically miss an entire playoff run where you still almost got by the Boston Celtics, right? You were so close to getting by the Celtics that year. Then the following year, I believe you lose to an 8 seed Miami Heat because you have the Giannis injury. He's got back stuff. And then you kind of freak out. You send Drew Holiday for Dame. You obliterate the vibes in Milwaukee. It just never really gelled in the way that you thought it was going to. And then, like, you haven't won a playoff series in how long, you know? And so it's just kind of a weird winding road here for the Milwaukee Bucks. And if they had just kind of kept the core together, and I know it's easy to say after the fact, but man, just a bizarre scenario for the Bucks. And now just Hail Mary desperation. And I don't see this working out well. Sorry, Bucks fans. This feels like, maybe a 4 seed in the most dog poo Eastern Conference we've had in a very long time, which is saying something. But I'm rooting for Dame's health, rooting for him to just sit back and find a spot that makes the most sense. You don't need to rush into this. And man, hopefully Giannis stays in Milwaukee for you Milwaukee fans. Otherwise, the trade rumors are going to be fired up and ready to go before Christmas time. Appreciate you hanging out. We'll have more content coming at you with more free agency stuff dropping every single day as Shams is tweeting. Hit the subscribe on the way out. Hit me with some comments. We'll see you next time.